Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Sammy J Reacts. Welcome back to my channel, and in today's video I got a fun one for you. We're going to be doing an open spoiler talk of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And I'm in the spirit. I'm wearing my Guardians of the Galaxy shirt. Flex on him one time. I got a chance to watch it twice already. I watched it in an early screening. Thankfully, there were some early screenings for IMAX, and I just got back from watching it in Dolby Cinema, and oh my god, we have to talk about it in an open spoiler form. I figured I'd wait long enough, but here it is, the open spoiler discussion. So this is going to be your spoiler warning. If you have not seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and you do not want to be spoiled, make sure you like this video and come back later so we can share your thoughts then, because I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts. So let's hop right into it. I don't want to wait anymore. I'm so excited. But before we get into it, make sure you drop a like, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell notification button to never miss one of my uploads so we can continue talking about what we love to watch. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the third installment in the Guardians franchise from James Gunn. He has written and directed all three of these films, and I'm happy to report right off the bat, I absolutely love this movie. It might be my favorite Guardians film. I think it is my favorite Guardians film, and it's in the top 5 of my MCU. It might even be top 3, to be honest. Off the top of my head, the only two movies that I think are better than it are Infinity War and Spider-Man No Way Home. But I think fighting for that third spot, Civil War and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Funny enough, 2 third movies. But I think easily this is the best trilogy in the entire MCU. When you bookend it from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, this is the best, most complete story in the entire MCU from a trilogy. And that's because you can just see it in the filmmaking. They care. Everyone involved in these movies, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 specifically, cares. James Gunn cares, so I need to care. I felt like I should care what I'm watching on the screen. Everyone acting, everyone in the visual effects department. This movie, for as much maligned as Marvel Studios has been for their visual effects, this movie has some of the best visual effects in all the MCU entirely. It was incredible. And to me, this movie isn't really like the MCU is back, because I think we got a little bit of that with Wakanda Forever, but then everyone kind of was just like, I hate Marvel because Quantumania wasn't as great. I personally didn't. I thought Quantumania was okay. But going from Quantumania to this is insane. What I do know is that James Gunn is going to leave a void at Marvel Studios that I'm not sure there's any director out there that they have can fill it. Maybe Ryan Coogler. I thought it was Taika Waititi, but after Thor Love and Thunder. But man, he is going to leave a massive void over at Marvel Studios, and it's because, like I said, man, he cares. He understands these characters. He took a ragtag group of Guardians that, to be honest, when I read the comics back in the day, I was like, oh, Star-Lord looks cool, but for the most part, I don't care about Groot or Rocket, Drax, all these other Guardians. And then when I watched Guardians of the Galaxy, the first movie, I was blown away by how much I truly cared. They were already my favorite characters other than Iron Man and Cap and Thor, the main big three. I absolutely love Volume 2. I think Volume 3 elevates Volume 2 so damn much. Starts at the top with James Gunn. I've been saying his name like 20 times, take a shot every time I say James Gunn. Seriously, he leveled up his filmmaking in this movie. He's one of the best blockbuster directors out there, and it's not because of just the action and the fun and the humor. To me, it's the heart and the care for these characters. The characters. We care because James makes us care. And that's always what makes the Guardians so special anyway. It's that they're the family, they're our family, put on the big screen in the MCU. They bicker, they fight, but at the end of the day, they love each other just like our family would. But let's just dive right into Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Starting off from the opening shot where we get, I think it's just that opening shot of just the High Evolutionary reaching into Rocket as just a regular raccoon as he's about to experiment on him. From the jump, I knew we were in for something way different. And then we cut to the opening credits where Rocket's listening to the Zune, walking around, and we're getting introduced to all of the Guardians as they're on Nowhere. If you've watched Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, you know it's a new safe haven that the Guardians have made for other refugees to come and live at. And there we kind of see where everyone's at mentally in their headspace and whatnot. Peter Quill is drunk, still reeling with the quote-unquote loss of at least his Gamora, but he knows Gamora's out there, which I don't know what's worse, losing your Gamora or knowing she's out there but she doesn't love you. Like, it's a really tough conundrum for Peter to swallow, and we see that he's wallowing in his own self-pity to start off this movie. But then we open up with, I think, one of the greatest character introductions, just opening sequence in a Marvel movie. Like, I was thrilled. Like, Adam Warlock coming through space. He was doing what now? Flying through space to attack Rocket. That entire sequence was so damn cool. Great action. Nebula gets a great time to shine. Drax gets a really cool fight scene, and we are introduced to Adam Warlock as, like, he's powerful. He's a strong guy. Like, don't be messing with him. Like, the Sovereign have created someone who's very powerful. Having Rocket's heart start palpitating throughout the whole scene had me on the edge of my seat. I was like, oh my god, are we gonna lose him already to start off the movie? And then that's pretty much the crux of the entire plot of the movie. Is it's funny, it's an inverse of where Rocket and Nebula, well, I guess for the same part, it's Nebula all over again. She had to deal with this twice. Her whole life basically, but it's the inverse of Infinity War and Endgame, where Rocket feels like he wants to help bring his friends back, but in this one it's his friends trying to bring him back to life. So I love that little parallel turn, because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. It's about family. And that's how we start to dive deep into Rocket's past. With him being incapacitated, he starts getting these flashbacks of his earlier life, how he was created, all of his friends from his earlier life. We meet Lila, who's voiced by Linda Cardellini. We meet Teefs, and we meet Floor. They're called Batch 89. Rocket is 89P13. And honestly, they are the toys from Toy Story that Sid creates. They are experiments. They're just another step in the high evolutionary's process to get the peak evolution of a being. And to me, Chukwudi Iwuji, what he's able to do in this movie just makes him one of the most fearsome villains in all of the MCU, all of Marvel history, because he's just a menace. He just wants to play God. He wants to be God. He wants to create the perfect organism in his eye, upgrading them and trying to upgrade himself to be this godlike figure. And we see that with how cruel he is to Batch 89 and Rocket himself. Even as smart as Rocket is, he's helping. Rocket is so smart that he's helping the high evolutionary figure some problems that he's having with creating these perfect human animal hybrids. And yet he still treats them like trash. And to me, the way they show it off rip is more menacing than what they showed with Kang the Conqueror. And then from there, we pretty much just pick up with the Ravagers. Gamora has joined the Ravagers with Sly Stallone and his team from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And then we get kind of like the 51st Dates thing where Gamora is just not having it with Peter Quill at all. She does not mess with him. She can't even believe that a version of herself would even fall in love with this guy. It's funny. We get a pretty funny scene between all of them trying to break into this place. I believe it's called the I forget what it's called. It's Oregon something, but still, it's a place they need to break into. And that's when we get the 2001: A Space Odyssey scene, which I really loved. I thought it was a nice homage. A lot of people thought it was Among Us, but come on, that's 2001: A Space Odyssey, baby. That's a Kubrick. Then we break in, and this entire sequence is basically just a cameo fest of James Gunn's friends. We see Nathan Fillion is playing like the head sentry, and he has a great joke. I have one of those. Every time he was making fun of his nephew, that shit was so funny. It was so damn funny. And then how Drax is at his peak form in this movie, man. Can I just say that off the rip? Not even off rip. We're halfway into this damn video, and I haven't even mentioned how funny Drax and Mantis are. Like, come on. We already knew that, though. This entire sequence just features cameos. Nathan Fillion, again, is great in this role. We then see Jennifer Holland, James Gunn's wife. She's like a scientist there at this place. And then Daniela Melchior, who plays Ratcatcher 2 in the Suicide Squad, they take hostage, try to get out of this entire big situation that they're in. We get a pretty cool fight scene in it where Mantis, oh man, I forgot to mention one of the funniest scenes is when Mantis makes one of the security personnel fall in love with Drax, and he's just like, hey. That whole scene is so damn funny, and oh my god, it just makes me appreciate the Guardians so much more. That entire sequence on that base is just so good. So top tier Guardians. Leads us to the climax, and I know I'm kind of rushing through this, but we'll kind of talk more at the end. I just kind of want to go briefly through the story of what everything happens, and then we'll kind of circle back and talk about other little things I missed, my favorite details, favorite songs, and all that stuff. But from there, we go to our climax, where the Guardians are searching for the High Evolutionary because they know he's the only one that can save Rocket from the self-destruct thing on his heart. And we finally get there. We get our cool climax. Everything is all grand and dandy. They defeat the High Evolutionary. Chukwudi Iwuji again gives such a magnificent performance. He just kills it, man. I'm telling you. Saturday morning cartoon-ish, but he kills it. And I just love everything they did with each and every character. But surprisingly, nobody dies in this movie, which I thought was pretty interesting. That, you know, they kind of misled us in the trailer as to what was going to happen, and most of what's in the trailer, like where it looks like people are dying, is actually pretty early on in the movie. Really, the stuff that gets you emotional is just like what has happened in Rocket's past and what happened to the people in his past. Of course, the High Evolutionary being a menace and killing everyone in his past. But yeah, from there, that's pretty much it. That's the last go around with the James Gunn group of Guardians. They all go their separate ways, which I personally like the fact that they didn't stay together, even though they are a family. At some point, we all have to leave the nest and spread our wings, right? To use that metaphor. And that's exactly what the Guardians are doing here. They're each trying to venture out to see what makes them unique and trying to get it on their own, essentially, before they come back eventually, I would assume, if they're all still alive. I mean, that's really the core theme of this entire movie, the entire Guardians franchise, is like this entire concept of family. And in this particular case, in this movie, is forgiveness. We see that later on when Groot saves Adam Warlock. He deserves a second chance, he says. Now I just kind of want to go open. I'm just going to go out. It's going to be a podcast mode. I kind of briefly touched on everything. I want to touch on my favorite moments, some minor gripes I had with the movie, and then just blow away, man. I'm ready. Before we do that, let's talk about the post-credit scenes for a second, because like I mentioned, they go their separate ways. In the post-credit scene, we see that Rocket is now the leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy with a new group. Rocket as the leader, Groot is now King Groot. We got Phyla-Vell, a little child, Adam Warlock, and Kraglin, of course. That is our new group of Guardians, and I cannot wait to see where this adventure takes them. And then the second post-credit scene picks up where Peter left off, because he went to Earth to visit his grandpa. Like he said, he didn't know if he was still alive or not. That was kind of closing the loop. And I love how that bookends the beginning of Guardians 1, where he's just a little kid with a backpack on and he gets abducted and his grandpa's like, where's Peter? And this is the inverse of Peter with his backpack on again, but coming back to see his grandpa. Anyway, in the post-credit scene, it's kind of just played for laughs a little bit. Peter's eating some cereal while his grandpa has like a newspaper, and you can actually see the abduction of Kevin Bacon's on this newspaper. But that cuts to black and we get Star-Lord will return, which I thought was interesting given the fact that we have a new group of Guardians. They didn't really say the Guardians will return, but it is nice that they reassured us that Star-Lord will return. Does that mean Chris Pratt? Does that mean a new apprentice? Who knows? But I find the future of the Guardians so interesting because now that James Gunn is moving over to DC, a lot of the actors, Dave Bautista in particular, but also Zoe Saldana has mentioned that she's done playing Gamora too. So it's like a lot of them have said that if James Gunn is not going to be involved, they don't want to be a part of this anymore. Even Chris Pratt has echoed that, but he said if there's a right story or right director, he would be willing to come back without James. But for the most part, these are very loyal actors to James Gunn. So I don't know if we're ever going to see any of these particular actors other than Chris Pratt back, but that's a real conundrum from the MCU. You know, I said earlier in this video that James Gunn's going to leave a big void because, well, first of all, he's a mastermind, master writer, master storyteller, master director now. But he's also taken all of his friends for as much shit as everyone gives him for always putting his friends in there. There's a reason he has a lot of friends and a lot of people that love him. It's because he's lovable, he's a great guy, great director, and people want to work with him. So we know Peter's on Earth. Now let's go with all the other Guardians and where they're going. Gamora's staying with the Gravagers, and I like that they did not give us a happy ending between Gamora and Star-Lord, but they gave us like a little tease that there is definitely still something there. But they can still, you know, explore Gamora out in the universe, wherever she's doing with the Ravagers and whatnot. One of my favorite lines in the movie is when Nebula said, "You are not a destroyer. You were always meant to be a destroyer. But what you were actually always meant to be was a dad." And that's because of the way he interacted with Phyla-Vell and all the other little girls on the ship. I love that so much. By the way, that scene is so funny when he actually understands what they're saying. Joop joop. Great Drax. Classic Drax. But I thought that was so damn heartwarming. Nebula and Drax stay on nowhere. And then Mantis goes off on her own with the big ass octopus monsters who make her return, who actually just needed some touching, you know? Some Mantis touching. One of my minor nitpicks and gripes with this movie is the fact that we finally get the suits, right? Like the cool comic accurate Guardians of the Galaxy suits. Finally gonna get to see Star-Lord in his cool classic blue suit with his helmet on, but there's just one problem. This man never puts on his helmet and he never uses his thrusters. And I know what you're thinking there. You're probably sitting there thinking, yeah, it is kind of a nitpick, but why are you making it such a big deal? Well, there's 2 points in this movie where it directly affects the story if he had his thrusters and he had his helmet. There's that scene where he tackles Nico Santos' character, one of the servants of the High Evolutionary, out of the window and they're falling. I was like, okay, cool, he's going to put his thrusters on, they're going to fly away. But he never uses them. And instead, it's Groot that has to save him, make some cool wings. I guess it was to sell toys or whatnot. I thought it was cool that Groot did that, but in the back of my mind, I was like, does he not have thrusters? He's had thrusters and he's been able to fly in all the other 2 movies. And now all of a sudden he's flying out. We just need Groot to save him by flying. I thought it was weird. Thought it was really interesting. I was like, okay, whatever. And then at the end, when he does his little cool move to shoot out of the High Evolutionary's castle, whatever the hell you want to call it, base, back to nowhere through space. He could have used his helmet in that situation where it looks like he's about to die just like his dad, Yondu, did. But in my mind, I was like, bro, just put your helmet on. Where's your helmet? Like those 2 direct moments in the movie, actually when the drip or lack thereof the drip actually directly affected what happened in a story. They didn't even bother like explaining what happened to his helmet or what happened to his thrusters or anything. So I don't know. That was just out of there. So I thought that was weird. Another thing is when that sorcerer guy who's on the Ravagers, the red alien, I think his name is Krugar. You could have just had him kind of Doctor Strange their way into the infiltrate instead of, you know, breaking in. I thought that was kind of weird that they didn't think about it, but I'm kind of glad they didn't think about it because there are some cool scenes that lead up to the break-in that we probably wouldn't have lost. So I'm glad they didn't think of it. But I just thought that was kind of like a logic thing where I was like, well, why wouldn't you do that, you know? And also the use of the F-bomb was cool, but I would have used it in a different way. Like, I don't mind, like, okay, cool. Get in the fucking car. That's kind of funny, right? But I would have rather have them used it, like, towards the end when they're beating the shit out of the High Evolutionary. It would have been cool if the High Evolutionary told them, what do you think you are? I am God. Who do you think you are? Or something. And they say, we're the Guardians of the fucking Galaxy. Or we're the fucking Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, to me, that would have hit way harder because it's also been set up twice before. In the first one, he says, you said it yourself, bitch, we're the Guardians of the Galaxy. And in the second one, Rocket's translating Groot, who says, welcome to the frickin' Guardians of the Galaxy. Only he didn't use frickin'. This would have been a perfect time to not use frickin'. But that's just a minor nitpick. Like I said, I absolutely adored this movie. Those nitpicks don't mean shit to me. except the Peter Quill one, because that is kind of odd that they didn't use his thrusters or his helmet. That one kind of does irk me, but it is what it is. We got to show Chris Pratt's lovely face. And I did love that biblical moment of Adam Warlock doing the little finger thing. I thought that was pretty clever and funny, and a good way to kind of redeem Adam Warlock for he's really just a big baby. He's not even a villain. But yeah, he needs someone to help him guide him into this life now that Aisha got killed. By the way, the High Evolutionary destroys the entire planet of animal people that he created because he thought they were faulty. That dude's a psychopath. Now, getting into some of the characters, I thought Chris Pratt in this role, like every now and then, he'll give me a performance that reminds me why people think he's a superstar. Because a lot of the times, I don't really think he's necessarily a great actor or anything, but I think he's a great blockbuster lead. But this performance seriously made me realize, like, okay, yeah, that's why people see him as a leading man in Hollywood. Like, this was top tier Chris Pratt. Obviously, this is Rocket's movie. This is Rocket Raccoon, and oh my goodness, Bradley Cooper, Sean Gunn, James Gunn, whoever was involved with everything, they deserve some type of award at the Oscars. Oscars, you guys need to put some type of motion capture / voice actor award at the Oscars, because this performance deserves that, literally. Like, I'm giving this man best supporting actor. I don't care. Everything with Rocket's back origin hits so damn hard, close to home. For some reason, I found it so damn relatable. And then when you go back and watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, the scene where he's in the bar talking about, I didn't ask to be made, and Volume 2 where he's talking to Yondu and he says, I know who you are, boy, because you're me. Like, those two scenes are just elevated such highly. And then every single time when he's trying to save his family, you understand why now. Because he lost Batch 89, his closest family and friends. Like, it's just so damn sad. I swear to God, I was going to cry every single time Baby Rocket was talking, because he kind of talked like a child would, you know? I love the dichotomy between him and the High Evolutionary. Like, the High Evolutionary sees him as Frankenstein. It's basically Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster, right? Like, Frankenstein sees him as this monster that he's created. And Frankenstein's monster just loves Frankenstein. And that's kind of how Rocket is. Like, he just loves his master, right? And he's just doing his bidding and doing whatever it is. But once he shows signs of intellect that he can actually surpass his master, that's when his master is kind of like, I just need to take that out of your brain because you're just like this worthless piece of shit, is basically what the High Evolutionary is thinking. Like, I created you. I can do what I want with you. I just thought that was all so damn compelling. And when he, like I said, when he kills his family, it's very sad, very heartbreaking. And oh my God, the scene where it looks like he's about to die after they hit the chip to bring him back to life, and he's thinking about going to heaven and seeing the light and sees his friends, they're up there in the beautiful sky. So sad, man. Tears, bro. I don't care. If you didn't cry, you don't have good emotions. Get your emotions in check. Moving on to Nebula, who I think also gets a really nice time to shine here. She's kind of done it already. She did her 180. She is now the way Gamora is, with her new family, loves everyone, wants to help and do the right thing. She's done that 180, and she gets a lot of time to shine in this movie. I think what Karen Gillan did with Nebula was just masterful. Dave Bautista as Drax is Drax times 1,000 in this movie. Every single time he opened up his mouth, he had me dying of laughter. He was so damn funny. He is the funniest and best character in the MCU. One of the best characters. I'm not gonna say the best. But like I said again, I love how his character moment kind of wraps up with him not being a destroyer. He was always meant to be a dad. Love that. Mantis gets to use her powers in a nice creative way, and she's kind of become more like open with sticking up for herself and sticking up with Drax and talking back to Nebula when she treats Drax like shit. I thought that was so damn cool. And then Gamora is more or less pretty much just like Gamora, except she's gotten a lot more savage. Like, she's got some less like, I ain't got time for this, we gotta do what we gotta do, whoever it affects, I don't care. So she's got a little bit of Nebula in her, but at the end of the day, she's Gamora and she's always gonna try to do the right thing. So I love that performance. I also like the relationship between Kraglin and Cosmo, and how that whole thing was going back and forth with him calling her a bad dog and her just wanting to have his reputation. They both get a really cool moment in this movie to shine. They're not in it as much as you would think, and they actually stay back when the Guardians go on their adventures, but they each, like I said, get a moment to shine when nowhere comes into conflict with the High Evolutionary's tower, or palace, whatever you want to call it. Cosmo Hope uses her psychiatric powers to hold the portal open, and Kraglin gets that badass moment when he has the arrow and he's been struggling and using it the whole time, and then he finally sees Yondu, and we get a cool Michael Rooker cameo of him as like a force ghost saying, I don't use my head to move the arrow, boy, I use my heart. And then he goes back, and we get a cool scene where he goes, love it. Every character gets a moment. Groot, Vin Diesel is pretty much Vin Diesel's voice now. Like, he just sounds just like him. Groot gets so many cool moments in this movie. He got them things on him. Oh my God, he went John Wick mode in there. It was crazy. And then he sprouts his wings and flies. Groot's like top tier level in this movie. It's so damn good. And then he speaks and he says, I love you guys. And we're like, what the fuck? I brought a tear to my eyes, man. I said going into the movie, if Groot says anything besides "I am Groot," I'm gonna fucking cry, just like he said "We are Groot." Obviously, Adam Warlock's introduction was just an introduction. He's a big baby because they took him out of his cocoon way too soon, so he's kind of not all there. He doesn't act completely childish, but there is a couple moments where it's funny how like dull he is. And Aisha returns, but like I said, she's pretty much just there as fodder. Not fodder, but like just to make sure Adam Warlock is doing the right thing. The High Evolutionary having creating the Sovereign, he's basically there since he's the one who sends Adam Warlock and all that stuff anyway. So it's gonna be fun to see Adam Warlock become the Warlock that we all know and love. But I thought it was a pretty good introduction. I saw some people complaining about it, but I didn't think he necessarily needed a big part in this movie anyway. I just thought it was a pretty good introduction. I thought he was funny. Will Poulter as him is great. I can't wait to see more of him. 2 thumbs up for me. And I do love Rocket's escape from his origin and how he scratches the dude when he's going to town on the High Evolutionary. Oh my god, I love that. And he gets on his little rocket and leaves, and that's why his name is Rocket. It's just so many great moments in this movie that I just truly love. Let's just call out some of the best moments that I absolutely adore. Obviously at the top of that list has to be the hallway fight scene when they got the Beastie Boys No Sleep Till Brooklyn playing in the background. I have that shit ingrained in my brain. That shit is so damn cool. Best hallway fight scene, best like slow-mo of all of the Guardians moving together. God, man, the camera work was impeccable, the stunt work was great, and of course, like I said, you got No Sleep Till playing in the background. I just absolutely love that. By the way, this might have the best soundtrack of all 3 movies. If it's not last, I'll tell you that much. The score was great. The sound, of course, the needle dropping soundtracks are always going to be great in Guardians movies. But yeah, man, everything I could have wanted in this movie and more happened. It was so damn great, so heartfelt, funny as hell. All the jokes landed, in my opinion. It wasn't typical Marvel humor. They let the emotion breathe in moments where it needed to breathe, but then hit us with a great joke over the head. Yeah, that's pretty much my spoiler review. I probably missed some things in here, but that's what the comment sections are for. I want to interact with you guys. I want you guys to let me know what you thought about this film in a spoilery discussion. But yeah, if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, drop a comment down below letting me know your thoughts on it, and let's just have an open discussion down below. But that's going to do it for me. As always, I'm going to leave you with a peace, love, and positivity, everybody. Peace.